The alien queen left her 3 daughters at my doorstep and said, "I want my grandchildren when I return, human." Liam had exactly 12 seconds between hearing the knock and opening his apartment door, which wasn't nearly enough time to prepare for the fact that his life was about to become scientifically impossible. The hallway should have been empty except for Mrs. Chen's potted ferns and the persistent smell of Mr. Kardashian's experimental curry. Instead, 4 women stood in a configuration that his brain initially rejected as a hallucination, brought on by too much late-night pizza and not enough sleep. 3 of them were beautiful in ways that made his genetics textbook understanding of human variation feel quaint and inadequate. The 4th was terrifying in a way that suggested she could probably rearrange solar systems if they displeased her. The tall one in the back wore robes that seemed to be made from compressed starlight, which was definitely not a fabric available at the mall. Her skin held a deep bronze luminescence, and her ears swept back from her face in elegant points that would have made every fantasy novel cover artist weep with joy. When she looked at him, Liam felt the distinct impression that she was seeing not just his face, but his entire genetic sequence, his credit score, and possibly his browser history. "Liam Thorne," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that made his teeth vibrate slightly. "I am Queen Zarya of the Endara Empire, sovereign of the 12 spiral territories, keeper of the quantum throne, and mother to these 3. She gestured to the women in front of her with the casual authority of someone accustomed to gesturing at entire planets. The one on the left had skin the color of deep ocean water at midnight, shimmering with an iridescence that shifted between blue and purple as she moved. Her violet eyes studied him with an intensity that suggested she was taking notes for a dissertation. The middle one practically radiated energy, her emerald skin seeming to pulse with barely contained motion, and her hand rested on what looked like a ceremonial sword that probably violated several city ordinances. The smallest stood partially hidden behind her sisters, her skin so pale it resembled moonlight on snow, and her lips moved in constant silent speech as though she were having a very important conversation with someone Liam couldn't see. "I'm sorry," Liam managed, his hand still on the doorknob. "I think you have the wrong apartment. The Thorns moved out 2 years ago. I'm just Liam Chen. Well, Chen Okonkwo, but I just go by Liam because the hyphen confuses people, and I really don't think I'm whoever you're looking for, because I definitely don't know any quantum thrones or spiral territories or—" "You are Liam," the Queen interrupted, with the finality of someone stating a law of physics. "You teach quantum mechanics at the community college. You have the genetic markers we require. You will suffice." The casual way she said suffice made Liam feel like a rental car that met the minimum specifications. Genetic markers for what exactly? He tried to keep his voice level, which was challenging when the green-skinned woman was now examining his doorframe with the critical eye of someone assessing its structural integrity for combat purposes. Queen Zarya smiled, which somehow made her more terrifying. "My daughters require suitable genetic material to produce the next generation of the Endaran royal line. You have been selected. I will return in 1 Earth year from the Galactic Council Summit. I expect grandchildren." The statement hung in the air like a physics problem that violated several fundamental laws. Liam's brain attempted to process the words in sequence, but kept getting stuck somewhere between genetic material and grandchildren. "I'm sorry, what?" But the Queen had already raised one hand, and the air behind her began to fold in on itself with a sound like reality clearing its throat. A portal irised open, revealing a glimpse of something that looked like a palace made of crystallized mathematics. "Olivia will explain the details," the Queen said, nodding to the blue-skinned woman. "Emma will ensure your compliance." A nod to the green one, who grinned in a way that suggested she enjoyed ensuring things. "And Mia will handle the biological engineering." The pale woman's eyes went wide, and she shook her head frantically while her lips formed silent protests. "Wait," Liam said, but the Queen was already stepping through the portal. Do you have a phone number? An email? A subspace frequency?" The portal contracted to a point of light and vanished with a soft pop, leaving Liam alone in his doorway with 3 alien princesses who looked exactly as confused as he felt. The blue one, Olivia, straightened her shoulders and said something in a language that sounded like wind chimes arguing with a synthesizer. The green one, Emma, responded with what was clearly a very creative curse word, if the way Olivia winced was any indication. The pale one, Mia, just looked at Liam and mouthed the word sorry, so clearly that he didn't need a translator. From down the hall, Mrs. Chen's door cracked open. "Everything okay, Liam? I thought I heard voices." Liam stared at the three alien women now standing in his living room, their long, elegant ears catching the morning light, their skin colors representing a spectrum that shouldn't exist on Earth, their expressions ranging from analytical to aggressive to apologetic. "Just some relatives visiting," he heard himself say. "Very distant relatives." "That's nice, dear. Tell them to keep it down during Jeopardy." Liam closed the door and turned to face his new roommates, his mind still trying to catch up with the fact that his Tuesday morning had just collided with what appeared to be an intergalactic arranged marriage scheme. Emma poked the television remote, which immediately caused the TV to turn on to a home shopping network selling commemorative plates. She jumped back, hand on her sword, ready to defend against the threat of limited time offers. Liam started laughing, which probably wasn't the appropriate response to having his life upended by alien royalty, but it was either that or screaming, and his lease specifically prohibited screaming before noon. The first crisis occurred approximately 17 minutes after the Queen's departure, when Emma decided the refrigerator was a containment unit for hostile entities and needed to be neutralized immediately. "Emma, no," Olivia said in English that carried only the slightest harmonic accent. "That is food preservation technology. Primitive, but functional." Emma's hand remained on her weapon, eyeing the refrigerator with deep suspicion. "It hums. Humming indicates active power cores. Active power cores indicate either propulsion systems or prisoner containment." "It keeps the milk cold," Liam said, wondering if this was actually happening or if he'd had a stroke while grading papers, and this was just his brain's creative interpretation of dying. "Just cold milk, and some leftover Chinese food that's probably a biohazard by now, but not the intergalactic kind." Mia moved past her sisters and opened the refrigerator door with careful reverence, as though approaching a religious artifact. She pulled out a container of yogurt, studied it from multiple angles, then held it up to the light. Her lips moved rapidly in silent speech while her fingers traced patterns on the container's surface. "Mia says the bacterial culture is intentional," Olivia translated, though Liam noticed she seemed to be reading her sister's lips rather than hearing actual words. "She finds it fascinating that you deliberately consume controlled decay." "That's actually a pretty accurate description of yogurt," Liam admitted. "Look, can we maybe back up here? Your mother just dropped you off like I'm some kind of interstellar daycare and said she wants grandchildren in a year. That's not how any of this works. There are laws, consent forms, at least a dinner first." Emma finally released her weapon and threw herself onto his couch with enough force that the frame creaked ominously. "Our mother," she said, "believes that human genetic material will solve the succession crisis by introducing adaptive randomness into the Andaran genome. She chose you because your quantum mechanics research suggests cognitive patterns compatible with our neural architecture." "I teach introductory quantum at community college," Liam said. "Last week I had to explain to a student that Schrodinger's cat was a thought experiment, not a real cat. I'm not exactly cutting-edge research material." "You published a paper on quantum entanglement's relationship to consciousness," Olivia said, settling gracefully into his desk chair and examining his bookshelves with clear interest. "It was crude, but it demonstrated intuitive understanding of principles our scientists require mathematics to grasp. Mother believes human neural chaos might complement Andaran structured cognition." Liam tried to remember publishing any papers and vaguely recalled a blog post he'd written at 2 a.m. that had somehow ended up cited in a fringe physics forum. "That was basically me rambling about whether particles could be lonely." "Yes," Olivia said. "You anthropomorphize quantum mechanics in ways that accidentally paralleled Andaran biofield theories. Mother found it promising." "I found it hilarious," Emma added, pulling off her boots to reveal feet that were definitely humanoid, but seemed to have an extra joint in the toes. "You asked if electrons felt peer pressure. That's not even wrong, it's just magnificently absurd." Mia had abandoned the refrigerator exploration and was now examining his coffee maker with the intensity of an archaeologist discovering an ancient civilization. She held up the pot, looked at Liam, and her lips formed a question he couldn't quite parse. "Coffee," he said. "It's a stimulant beverage. Makes you alert, helps you tolerate morning." Mia's eyes lit up and she began signing rapidly with her free hand while her mouth continued its silent narration. "She wants to know if you're biochemically dependent on it," Olivia translated, "and whether the dependency is psychological, physical, or spiritual in nature." "Yes to all three," Liam said, "which is honestly the least weird thing happening right now." "Look, I need to understand something. Your mother said she expects grandchildren, but you all seem about as enthusiastic about this plan as I am." Emma snorted, which created a small shimmer in the air around her nose that Liam decided not to think too hard about. "Mother expects many things. She expected me to win the trials of ascension. I punched the arbiter instead. She expected Olivia to accept the arranged bonding with the House of Core. Olivia wrote a 300-page treatise on why the entire concept of arranged bonding violates causality." "It does violate causality," Olivia said calmly. "One cannot predetermine compatibility without first establishing the quantum states of the individuals involved, and observation collapses those states therefore." "And she expected Mia to stop blowing things up," Emma continued, ignoring her sister's digression. Mia looked up from the coffee maker and shrugged apologetically, though her expression suggested she wasn't actually sorry about whatever things she'd blown up. "So this is what, punishment?" Liam asked. "She's mad at you three? And I'm collateral damage?" "No," Olivia said, and her voice carried unexpected gentleness. "This is hope disguised as command. Mother believes we need chaos to survive. The androgen genome is too stable, too perfect. We've optimized ourselves into an evolutionary dead end. Human DNA is messy, contradictory, irrational. You adapt to things that should kill you. You thrive in disorder. She thinks that might save us. By having babies with a guy who can't even save the leftovers in his fridge from going bad? Genetic exchange is merely the stated goal," Olivia said. "I suspect the actual experiment is cohabitation. Whether we can learn to exist with someone whose entire cognitive framework contradicts our training." Emma had found his remote and was now scrolling through channels with the grim determination of someone on a reconnaissance mission. She stopped on a cooking show where a chef was enthusiastically whisking eggs. Her hand went to her weapon. "That human is torturing those protein spheres with aggressive rotational force." "He's making an omelet," Liam said weakly. "Why is he smiling about it? Is this a dominance display?" Mia appeared beside Liam holding a bag of coffee beans like it was precious treasure. Her mouth formed words that he was starting to realize he needed to learn to read, because her voice was clearly not something she used casually. "She wants to analyze the chemical composition," Olivia said. "She promises not to destroy it." "Probably." Liam looked at the three alien princesses who had invaded his apartment, his life, and apparently his refrigerator. Emma was now yelling at the cooking show about improper whisking technique. Olivia had pulled down his copy of Gödel Escher Bach and was reading it upside down, either by mistake or because androgen reading orientation was different. Mia had opened the coffee bag and was inhaling deeply with an expression of pure bliss. His phone buzzed, a text from the department head asking if he could cover an extra section next semester. Liam looked at the phone, looked at the aliens, looked at his life. "I'm going to need so much more coffee," he said. Mia's smile suggested she considered this an excellent plan. 3 weeks into cohabitation with alien royalty, Liam learned that Olivia read philosophy at 3 in the morning. Emma had opinions about every action movie ever made, and Mia could make eggs that glowed softly in the dark, which was beautiful but deeply unsettling. "The fundamental problem with your Descartes," Olivia said, hovering over his shoulder while he tried to grade papers at 2 a.m., "is that he assumes consciousness requires doubt. Androgen philosophy begins from certainty and works backward toward productive confusion." "That's just doubt with extra steps," Liam muttered, circling a student's creative interpretation of the uncertainty principle that suggested Heisenberg was probably just guessing. "No, doubt implies the possibility of being wrong. Productive confusion acknowledges that wrongness and rightness are observer-dependent states." Olivia settled into the chair across from him, cradling a mug of coffee that she'd learned to drink with an alarming 4 sugars and some kind of glowing purple spice she'd produced from a pocket dimension. At least Liam assumed it was a pocket dimension. She'd tried to explain it as folded space keyed to biosignature resonance, which sounded fake, but he'd stopped questioning the physics of his life around day 5. "How's that working out for your empire?" he asked, then immediately regretted it when her expression shifted into something complicated. "We achieved perfect social order, eliminated disease, extended our lifespan to 4 centuries, and created technology that makes your species' greatest achievements look like children stacking blocks," she said quietly. "Then we realized we hadn't had a new idea in 6,000 years. Perfection is a terminal state, Liam. Once you achieve it, there's nowhere left to go." From the living room came a shout of, "That is not how you clear a room," followed by the sound of Emma rewinding the tactical raid scene in some movie for the 7th time. She'd discovered streaming services and had been systematically analyzing human combat techniques with the focused intensity of someone writing a dissertation on everything wrong with Earth's understanding of violence. "Your action choreographers prioritize visual drama over practical efficiency," Emma called out. "This character just kicked someone through a window when a simple nerve strike would have... Oh, of course, now he's backflipping off a car for no tactical reason whatsoever." "It looks cool," Liam called back. "It looks like an excellent way to destroy your own knees and announce your position to every enemy in a 3-block radius." Mia emerged from the kitchen carrying a plate of what Liam had learned to call breakfast experiment number 47. She'd become obsessed with human cooking, treating his kitchen like a laboratory and his spice rack like a set of reagents. The eggs on the plate had a faint bioluminescent shimmer and were garnished with something that looked like chives but hummed at a frequency just below hearing. She set the plate down in front of him, and her lips moved in silent explanation, while her hands signed supplementary details. "She says the phosphorescence is from a harmless Endaran algae that enhances neural conductivity," Olivia translated. "Eating it should temporarily increase your cognitive processing speed by approximately 12%. She's been trying to create a hybrid cuisine that combines nutritional profiles from both our species." "Should I be worried about the long-term effects of eating glowing food?" Liam asked, but he was already picking up his fork because Mia's cooking had yet to be anything less than supernaturally delicious. Mia shook her head, then held up her own plate and took a deliberate bite, maintaining eye contact to demonstrate safety. Her eyes really were remarkable, Liam thought, pale silver with flecks of color that seemed to shift based on her mood. Right now they held something that might have been pride mixed with nervousness. The eggs tasted like regular eggs if regular eggs had somehow unlocked additional flavor dimensions that human agriculture had never discovered. "This is incredible," he said, and watched Mia's entire posture brighten. She signed something quick and fluid, smiling now. "She says human ingredients have chaotic molecular structures that interact with Endaran bioengineering in unexpected ways," Olivia said. "Your food surprises her. Endaran cuisine is nutritionally perfect, but, she admits, boring." "Everything about us is boring," Emma said, abandoning her movie critique to sprawl dramatically across the couch. "Perfect genetics, perfect society, perfect boring lives where nothing unexpected ever happens because we've optimized away the possibility of surprise. You know what I did before Mother sent us here? I trained for combat scenarios that will never occur because we haven't had a war in 3,000 years. I'm a warrior princess with nothing to fight except the crushing ennui of existence." "You could fight crime," Liam suggested. "There's plenty of that on Earth." Emma sat up so fast she blurred slightly. "Can I? I was joking. But technically I could. Your law enforcement is demonstrably overwhelmed. I have superior training, advanced technology, and considerable frustration to work through. This is an excellent idea." "This is a terrible idea," Olivia said. "We're supposed to be maintaining a low profile. We're 3 aliens living with a human to produce hybrid offspring," Emma shot back. "That ship has sailed, crashed, and exploded in a very satisfying fireball." Liam's phone buzzed, another text from the department head, this one asking if he'd seen the news about unusual atmospheric phenomena near campus. He pulled up the news site and found shaky footage of what looked like heat distortion in the sky above his building. "Is that your ship?" he asked Mia, who had moved to look over his shoulder. She nodded, lips forming what he was learning to recognize as technical explanations. Her fingers traced patterns in the air that left brief after images, like she was writing equations in light. "The quantum fold is degrading," Olivia said, leaning over to examine the footage. "We'll need to recalibrate the spatial anchor, or your neighbors will start seeing a Andaran Royal Cruiser parked in dimensional overlap with their airspace. Can you do that without anyone noticing?" "Mia can," Olivia said. "She designed most of the ship's systems. Mother calls her delicate, but she's actually the most brilliant engineer in 3 generations. She just prefers not to draw attention." Mia's cheeks darkened to a pale rose color, which Liam was learning meant embarrassment or pleasure or some Andaran emotion that didn't translate cleanly. She signed something that made Olivia laugh. "She says she'll fix it tonight if you come with her. The ship's AI has been asking about you. Apparently it's developed curiosity about the human who's housing the royal family." "Your ship has curiosity?" "All Andaran ships are semi-sentient," Emma said. "Ours is named Meridian, and she's extremely judgmental about our life choices. This should be fun." Liam looked at his half-graded papers, his glowing eggs, the 3 alien women who had somehow become his roommates, and the news footage of reality literally fraying above his apartment building. "I teach quantum mechanics to undergraduates," he said to nobody in particular. "I used to have a normal life." Mia patted his hand gently, her touch warm and carrying that same faint hum as her cooking. Her lips formed 2 words he didn't need translation for. "Not anymore." She was right, of course. Normal had left the building the moment he'd opened his door 3 weeks ago. The question now was whether he was okay with that. Emma was back to yelling at the television. Olivia had returned to his bookshelf and was reading Kant with an expression of profound disagreement. Mia was adding more glowing garnish to his eggs, humming silently. Liam picked up his fork and decided that normal was overrated anyway. The holographic message from Queen Zariah materialized at 8 p.m. on a Thursday, which was unfortunate timing because Liam had just convinced Emma that humans did not, in fact, resolve philosophical disagreements through ritual combat, and Olivia had almost stopped trying to reorganize his bookshelf by quantum probability of being read. The Queen's face filled the living room in shimmering blue light, each pixel carrying more processing power than Liam's laptop. Her expression held all the warmth of a black hole examining something it was about to consume. "Status report," the Queen said without preamble. "6 months have elapsed. I expect measurable progress toward the stated objective." The 3 sisters exchanged looks that contained entire conversations Liam couldn't parse. Emma's hand drifted toward her weapon before Olivia shot her a glare that could have flash-frozen helium. "Mother," Olivia began with careful diplomatic precision, "we have been engaging in extensive cultural exchange and achieving significant breakthroughs in interspecies understanding that will surely benefit." "Have you produced offspring?" the Queen interrupted. The silence that followed could have been weaponized. "That's not really how human reproduction works," Liam heard himself say, which was possibly the stupidest thing he'd ever said to an intergalactic monarch. "There's usually some relationship building involved. Dating, getting to know each other. Maybe a movie, several movies, a discussion about feelings. It's a whole process." The Queen's gaze shifted to him with the weight of a planetary gravity well. "I selected you for genetic compatibility, not your understanding of social rituals. The biology is straightforward. Andaran medical technology can facilitate the process if you are experiencing performance difficulties." "I'm not experiencing..." Liam stopped himself before that sentence went anywhere more embarrassing. "The point is, you can't just drop people off and expect them to immediately start making babies like some kind of intergalactic breeding program." "Can I not?" The Queen's tone suggested she absolutely could and had already planned the genetic sequencing. Emma stood up with enough force that the couch slid backward 3 inches. "Mother, with respect, this entire plan is insane. You sent us to Earth because the succession crisis requires proof that Andaran genetics can evolve, but making us seduce some random human just to produce hybrid offspring misses the entire point. If we can't choose our own paths, we're just reinforcing the same rigid thinking that created the crisis in the first place." The hologram flickered, which Liam interpreted as the Queen being surprised. Apparently, Emma didn't usually voice disagreements quite this directly. "You dare question my strategy?" the Queen said, her voice dropping into harmonics that made Liam's sternum vibrate. "I question whether you actually want grandchildren, or if you want us to learn something you won't say directly," Emma shot back. "Because if this was really about genetics, you could have harvested Liam's DNA, grown the hybrids in artificial wombs, and saved everyone the awkward cohabitation. But you didn't. You left us here to figure something out." Olivia had gone very still in the way that suggested her mind was working at the speed of light through multiple probability trees. "Emma's right. This isn't about producing offspring. It's about whether we can adapt to chaos, whether we can build something real with someone fundamentally different from us without falling back on protocol and genetic engineering to solve the problem." Mia stood from where she'd been sitting cross-legged on the floor, her hands moving in rapid signs while her lips formed words that gained speed and intensity. Liam caught fragments. "Not delicate, dangerous, accident," before Olivia started translating. "Mia says she's tired of being treated like a fragile ornament. She's not delicate. When she was 7, she tried to synthesize a new bioluminescent compound and accidentally created a resonance frequency that shattered every window in the research facility and hospitalized 3 scientists. Mother decided her voice was too dangerous to use, that she should stay quiet and small and safe. But she's not any of those things. She's brilliant and powerful, and she's been silent for 20 years because one accident made everyone afraid of what she could do." Mia's hands were shaking now, and Liam realized she was angry in a way that transcended language. Her lips moved one more time, forming words that needed no translation. "I want to choose." The Queen's hologram stabilized, her expression cycling through something that might have been surprise or pride, or the emotional equivalent of recalculating a navigation route mid-flight. "You think I don't know what I sent you to learn? I am not stupid, daughters. I am desperate. The Empire stagnates because we have forgotten how to want things we cannot calculate. We have optimized desire out of existence. I sent you to Earth because humans are catastrophically irrational and somehow still survive. I hoped you might remember how to want something unpredictable." "So this whole thing is what? Therapy?" Emma asked. "Intergalactic mother-daughter counseling disguised as a breeding program?" "Call it what you wish. In 6 months I will return. If you have produced offspring, I will accept that as proof of successful integration. If you have not, I will accept evidence that you have learned to choose your own futures, instead of accepting assigned roles." The Queen's expression softened in a way that suggested the hologram might be malfunctioning. "I chose Liam because his research suggested a mind that questions everything, even himself. I thought he might teach you to question too." Liam looked at the 3 sisters who had occupied his apartment, his refrigerator, his bookshelves, and increasingly his thoughts over the past 6 months. Emma, who argued with action movies and challenged every assumption he'd ever made about physics. Olivia, who read philosophy at dawn and treated human irrationality like a puzzle worth solving. Mia, whose silent presence had become a constant comfort, whose cooking tasted like possibilities, whose occasional hand on his shoulder felt like being understood without words. "For what it's worth," he said to the hologram, "they've taught me a few things too. Like how glowing eggs are actually perfectly safe, and that human combat choreography really is inefficient, and that maybe the reason we survive our own irrationality is because we've accepted that not everything needs to make sense to matter." The Queen regarded him for a long moment. 6 months, Liam. Convince me you're worth the disruption to galactic politics." The hologram dissolved, leaving the 4 of them standing in the living room with the emotional residue of having their entire situation recontextualized. "So," Liam said eventually, "anyone want to order pizza and pretend that didn't just happen?" "Yes," all 3 sisters said simultaneously. Emma pulled out her phone. She'd learned to use human technology with disturbing speed and started scrolling through menus. "I want the one with the spicy processed meat discs. They're tactically unsound as nutrition, but emotionally satisfying." "Pepperoni," Liam corrected. "Whatever. I'm getting extra." Mia moved to stand beside Liam, her hand finding his with a deliberateness that felt like a statement. Her lips formed words that he'd learned meant something like, "Thank you for defending us." though the androgen concept contained layers about honor and trust that English couldn't quite capture. Olivia was already back at the bookshelf, but she glanced over with something that might have been approval. Your species has a phrase about jumping from frying pans into fires. I believe we've just done that. Yeah, Liam agreed, feeling Mia's warm hand in his and watching Emma argue with the pizza app about optimal topping distribution. But at least the fire has really good food. Mia's silent laugh shook her shoulders, and for the first time since they'd arrived, Liam thought he might actually understand what the Queen had been hoping for. The morning after the Queen's holographic intervention, Liam woke up to find Emma doing one-arm push-ups in his living room while watching a documentary about MMA fighting, Olivia asleep at his desk with her face pressed against being and nothingness, and Mia in the kitchen creating something that smelled like cinnamon and starlight. We need to talk about what we're actually doing here, Emma said without breaking rhythm in her exercise. On screen, two fighters grappled while a commentator explained submission techniques. Because I'm done pretending Mother's plan makes any conventional sense. Liam shuffled toward the coffee maker, his brain not yet operational enough for philosophical discussions about intergalactic expectations. Mia intercepted him with a mug already prepared, the coffee swirling with something luminescent that he'd stopped questioning 2 weeks ago. Her fingers brushed his as she handed it over, lingering just slightly longer than necessary. I've been thinking, Olivia said, apparently not actually asleep despite her face-down position. She sat up, her hair defying several laws of physics in its arrangement. Mother's entire premise is flawed. She wants us to prove Andaran genetics can evolve through integration with human DNA. But evolution isn't about individual reproduction. It's about populations adapting across generations. 3 hybrid offspring wouldn't prove anything except that cross-species breeding is biologically possible, which we already knew from theoretical models. So what's the actual test? Liam asked, the coffee beginning to activate his higher cognitive functions. Whatever Mia put in it worked faster than caffeine alone. Whether we can build something that neither species could create alone, Olivia said. Not genetically, culturally, intellectually. Whether chaos and order can coexist productively instead of destroying each other. Emma stopped mid-push-up. That's either profound or you've been reading too much human philosophy and it's damaged your brain. Both can be true. Olivia stood and moved to the window, looking out at the city waking up below. I've been working on something, a theoretical framework that combines Andaran computational logic with human intuitive reasoning. Neither approach works perfectly alone. Our logic is too rigid, your intuition too random. But together they might actually model consciousness more accurately than either species has managed independently. You've been writing a paper? Liam asked. I've been writing several papers, and I want to publish them under both our names. Human Andaran collaboration, proof that integration produces innovation. Mia set down a plate of what looked like French toast but shimmered with the same bioluminescence as the coffee. She signed something rapid and excited, her whole body animated, in a way Liam had learned meant she was about to explain something brilliant. Mia's been doing similar work with biological engineering, Olivia translated. She's created hybrid plant specimens that combine earth flora with Andaran bioluminescent systems. They can grow in conditions that would kill either species' plants alone. She thinks she can develop crops that could terraform hostile environments while remaining edible to both humans and Andarans. I made glowing tomatoes, Liam said slowly, and solved the food crisis for planetary colonization? Mia nodded enthusiastically, then pulled out her phone. She'd taken to human technology with the same methodical precision she applied to everything, and showed him pictures of plants that looked like they belonged in a science fiction movie, which he supposed they did. I want to publish too, Mia signed, and Olivia translated. I want people to know that this is possible, that different doesn't mean incompatible. And I want to beat people up, Emma announced, but for justice instead of boredom. Your city has crime. I have extensive combat training and no productive outlet. I've been researching your vigilante laws. We don't have vigilante laws, Liam interrupted. We have laws against vigilantism. Semantics. The point is, I can help people and finally use my training for something other than hypothetical scenarios. I want to make a difference, not just exist as a symbol of royal genetic perfection. Liam looked at the three of them, Olivia with her wild theoretical frameworks, Mia with her impossible plants, Emma with her determination to punch crime in its face, and felt something shift in his understanding of the situation. Your mother said she'd accept either offspring or evidence that we've learned to choose our own futures, he said. What if we show her both? Not baby making, but actual partnership. Real collaboration that produces things neither species could make alone. You want to collaborate with us? Olivia asked, and her voice held something uncertain that he'd never heard before. I mean, I've been collaborating with you for months. You've reorganized my entire understanding of quantum consciousness. Mia's taught me that food can be art and science simultaneously. Emma's convinced me that every action movie I've ever loved is tactically embarrassing. You've already changed how I think. Why not make it official? Mia moved closer, her hand finding his arm. Her lips formed words that Olivia didn't need to translate because the meaning was clear in the way she looked at him. You mean it? Yeah, Liam said, surprising himself with how much he did mean it. I mean, we could keep trying to figure out the genetic component if you want. Oh, we definitely should, Emma interrupted with a grin that was absolutely not appropriate for breakfast conversation. But maybe because we want to, not because Mother commanded it. Olivia was smiling now too, that calculating expression replaced with something softer. A human Andaran research partnership, published papers, practical applications, evidence that integration works on every level, not just biological. Plus vigilante justice, Emma added. No vigilante justice, Liam said. Community-oriented voluntary security assistance? That's just vigilante justice with more words. I'm going to do it anyway. I know. Mia tugged on Liam's sleeve, then signed something that made Olivia laugh and Emma throw a couch pillow at her. She says, Olivia managed between laughs, that if we're going to collaborate on everything else, we should probably address the fact that we're all attracted to you, and you're attracted to all of us, and the tension is becoming scientifically measurable. Liam choked on his coffee, which created a small light show as the bioluminescent compounds reacted to the sudden turbulence. We haven't even... Humans are so weird about acknowledging obvious attraction, Emma said. On Andara, if multiple people want the same partner, they discuss it rationally and establish compatible parameters. This is Earth. We have a whole complicated system involving awkward silences and wondering if someone likes you back and overthinking everything. That sounds terrible, Olivia said. It really is. Mia was signing again, her expression serious now, and Olivia's translation came quieter. She says she knows this is complicated. 3 Andarans and 1 human doesn't fit either culture's standard relationship models. But she doesn't want standard. She wants real. And she thinks maybe real is what we've been building accidentally while trying to figure out what Mother wanted. Liam looked at Mia's silver eyes, at Emma's confident grin, at Olivia's careful hope, and realized they'd already answered the Queen's question without meaning to. They'd built something neither species had words for yet, something that required new frameworks, new understanding, new ways of being together. So we publish papers, he said. We grow impossible plants. Emma fights crime, but tries not to get arrested, and we figure out the rest as we go. And you accept that all 3 of us are courting you simultaneously, Emma added. Is that what we're calling it? Would you prefer aggressive romantic pursuit? Courting is fine. Mia kissed his cheek, quick and warm, and tasting faintly of starlight. Olivia raised her coffee mug in a toast. Emma went back to her push-ups, but she was smiling. Outside, the city continued waking up, completely unaware that somewhere in a too-small apartment, evolution was happening in real time. The Queen's return came not with thunder or portals ripping reality apart, but with a simple knock on the door exactly 1 year after she'd first appeared. Liam had been expecting dramatic, but apparently even intergalactic monarchs occasionally chose subtlety. He opened the door to find Queen Zarya standing alone in the hallway, her long ears swept back in what might have been curiosity or judgment. Mrs. Chen was watching from her own doorway with unconcealed interest, probably wondering if this was another distant relative. Your Majesty, Liam said because he'd learned some protocol over the past year. Please come in. The Queen stepped into the apartment that had become a collision point between worlds. What she found was Emma arguing fluid dynamics with Liam while gesticulating at a whiteboard covered in both human calculus and Andaran geometric proofs that made his eyes hurt if he looked at them too long. Olivia was curled in the reading chair with a printed manuscript, reading passages aloud to Mia, who sat cross-legged on the floor, adding bioluminescent illustrations to the margins. The coffee table held evidence of breakfast, plates with residual glow, mugs containing what humans probably shouldn't drink but did anyway, and Mia's latest creation that looked like a croissant but hummed quietly. The Queen surveyed the scene with an expression Liam couldn't parse. The silence stretched long enough that Emma stopped mid-equation, and Olivia looked up from her reading. "Mother," Olivia said carefully, setting down her manuscript. "Welcome back." "Show me," the Queen said without preamble. "Show me what you have accomplished." The three sisters exchanged glances. Then Olivia stood and picked up the bound manuscript she'd been reading. "We haven't produced offspring, if that's what you're asking. But we've produced this." She held up the document. "A complete theoretical framework for integrating Andaran computational logic with human intuitive reasoning, published in both Earth's peer-reviewed journals and submitted to the Andaran Academy of Sciences, co-authored by myself and Liam. It's already generated controversy in both communities, which we consider proof of concept." Emma moved to the kitchen and returned with a small potted plant that glowed with soft blue light along its leaves. "Mia engineered this. It's a hybrid of Earth soybeans and Andaran bioluminescent flora. It can grow in radiation levels that would sterilize either species' crops alone, requires minimal water, and produces protein structures digestible by both human and Andaran systems. She's already been contacted by 3 terraforming companies and your own agricultural ministry." Mia stood and moved to stand beside Liam, her hand finding his with practiced ease. She signed something, and Olivia translated. "She says the plants are just the beginning. She's mapping genetic compatibility between our species, not for reproduction, but for medical applications. Andaran regenerative technology combined with human adaptive immunity could revolutionize treatment for diseases neither species can currently cure." The Queen examined the plant with something that might have been interest. "And the 4th project?" she asked, looking at Emma. "I've been providing community-oriented voluntary security assistance," Emma said with the confidence of someone who'd rehearsed this answer. "She's been fighting crime," Liam corrected. "Technically as an unauthorized vigilante, but the police have stopped trying to arrest her because her success rate is better than theirs, and she hasn't killed anyone yet." "I have excellent restraint," Emma said proudly. "You sent 2 muggers to the hospital last week." "They were mugging someone. Context matters." The Queen's expression might have been amusement, but it was hard to tell with Andaran royalty. She moved to the couch and sat with the kind of deliberate care that suggested she was making a point about something. "I sent you here to produce heirs. You have produced academic papers, agricultural innovations, and apparently a crime-fighting scandal. By what logic should I consider this an acceptable outcome?" "Because we've proven integration works," Olivia said, moving to sit across from her mother. "Not through forced reproduction, but through genuine collaboration. Everything we've created required both human chaos and Andaran structure. Liam's intuitive leaps gave my logic frameworks flexibility they needed. My computational precision gave his theories mathematical rigor. Neither of us could have developed this work alone. Same with the plants," Emma added, settling onto the arm of the couch. "Mia's engineering genius combined with Earth's biodiversity. She says human genetics are fascinatingly irrational, which somehow makes them perfect for creating adaptable hybrid systems." Mia signed rapidly, her movements sharp with emphasis. "She says you wanted proof that Andarans can evolve beyond genetic optimization," Olivia translated. "This is that proof. We didn't follow your instructions. We chose our own path. We built something real instead of fulfilling a political obligation. If the empire can't survive unless we learn to choose our own futures instead of accepting prescribed roles, then this is us choosing." The Queen was quiet for a long moment, her gaze moving between her daughters and Liam. "You still have not addressed the succession crisis. The rival houses still demand proof of genetic adaptability." "Actually," Liam said, surprising himself by speaking up to an intergalactic monarch, "we've been discussing that. Andron medical technology can facilitate reproduction without traditional methods, right? If you need genetic proof, Mia says she can engineer hybrid embryos using artificial gestation. But that would prove nothing except that cross-species breeding is biologically possible, which everyone already knew. What we've actually proven is that Andarans can adapt, can collaborate, can create new things by working with species you consider primitive. Primitive, the Queen repeated, and now there was definitely amusement in her voice. His word, not ours, Emma said quickly. We prefer charmingly chaotic, Olivia added. The Queen stood and moved to examine the whiteboard covered in their collaborative work. When I sent you here, I did not know what I hoped you would find. Only that our empire was dying of perfection, and I had 3 daughters who had never been allowed to choose anything for themselves. I gambled that humanity's beautiful disaster of a civilization might teach you something our optimal society could not. Did it work? Emma asked. You are arguing with me instead of accepting my judgment. Olivia has published work that contradicts Andaran orthodoxy. Mia is speaking through signs and translation instead of staying silent. You have built lives that fit no established protocol. The Queen turned to face them. Yes, I believe it worked. So what happens now? Liam asked. The Queen regarded him with that weight of galaxies stare. Now you choose. Return to Andara as proof that evolution is cultural, not merely genetic, or remain on Earth as ambassadors, building bridges between our species. The succession crisis will resolve because you have already proven what the rival houses claimed impossible, that Andarans can thrive by embracing change rather than optimizing it away. The 3 sisters looked at each other, then at Liam, communicating in that wordless way they'd developed over the past year. Both, Olivia said finally. We split our time, continue our work, publish our research, maintain connections to both worlds. We don't have to choose between our heritage and our future. We can build something that honors both. Practical, the Queen said, though I notice you still have not addressed whether you will provide grandchildren. Mother, Emma groaned, a reasonable question. You have been cohabiting with this human for a year. His genetic material remains relevant to our political situation. Mia signed something that made her sisters laugh and the Queen's eyebrow rise. She says, Olivia managed through her laughter, that if you want grandchildren, you should ask nicely instead of commanding, because we're not fulfilling political obligations anymore. We're building a family, and families don't work through royal decrees. The Queen's expression cycled through several emotions too quickly for Liam to track. Finally, she said, I am asking, nicely, would you consider producing offspring with this human who has somehow convinced all 3 of my daughters that chaos is a viable life strategy? See, was that so hard? Emma asked. Harder than conquering the 7th spiral arm. Liam looked at the 3 women who had invaded his life, his apartment, his refrigerator, and his heart. I think we're still figuring out what we are to each other. But yeah, eventually, when we're ready. Not because an empire needs proof of anything, but because we want to. The Queen nodded slowly. Acceptable, though I will note that I am now 4 centuries old and would prefer to meet my grandchildren before I reach 5. You're literally immortal, Emma said. Irrelevant. I want grandchildren. You're going to be an insufferable grandmother, aren't you? I am a queen. I am insufferable in all roles. Mrs. Chen chose that moment to knock on the door with a casserole dish. Liam, dear, I made too much. She stopped, seeing the Queen. Oh, another relative? You have such a large family. My mother-in-law, Liam said before his brain caught up with his mouth. Visiting from out of town. Very far out of town. The Queen's expression suggested she was filing this away as evidence of something. Mrs. Chen handed over the casserole, welcomed the Queen to the building, and left with a reminder about quiet hours during Jeopardy. Mother-in-law, the Queen repeated. I panicked, Liam said. Interestingly specific panic response. Mia kissed his cheek, her lips warm and tasting like the cinnamon starlight she'd been cooking with. Emma laughed and pulled him into a one-armed hug that nearly cracked his ribs. Olivia just smiled with that knowing expression that suggested she'd calculated this outcome months ago. The Queen watched her daughters and the human who'd somehow become part of their constellation. I will return in 6 months. Perhaps by then you will have decided which world to call home. We already have, Olivia said, gesturing to the small apartment, crowded with collaborative whiteboards, impossible plants, academic papers, and the evidence of 4 people learning to build something neither species had words for yet. This is home, wherever we are together. The Queen nodded and moved toward the door. Before leaving, she paused. Liam, thank you for teaching my daughters to choose. They taught me too, he said. Turns out glowing eggs are a pretty good metaphor for accepting things you don't understand but matter anyway. The Queen left through the door like a normal person, which was somehow more surreal than the portal. Liam looked at his family, because that's what they were now, despite all logic and probability, and started laughing. Emma joined in, then Olivia, then Mia's silent laughter shook her shoulders. Outside, the city continued on, unaware that evolution was happening in apartment 3B, one glowing breakfast at a time. The end. And so we come to the end of Liam's story. Sci-Fi Pulse reminds you that the future is written by those who dare to choose it, even when it comes knocking at your door with long ears and impossible expectations. Until the next story, explorers.